In this week's episode, we're going to talk about, are you a villain? And why do I need to police? Been doing this for 2 years? Why do I feel like an imposter? And finally, we'll talk about, is AI replacing the quality manager? All that in this week's episode of Q&A with my quality guy. Let's get into it. Our first question comes to us from a Reddit post. How do I stop feeling like the villain or the police of my company? Well, that is a eternal question for those businesses that have not embraced quality management as a mindset. I see that as a company that is checking a box so they get business, and that's not healthy. What I can encourage the reader to do is really look at it from a standpoint of, hey, am I doing what's needed to make sure that what goes out the door is right? And look at it that way. And in the meantime, maybe look for a new company to work for. Question 2 comes to us from quality manager. I've been a quality manager for 2 years, and I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. Is imposter syndrome inevitable in this field? Well, think you need to look at what you've accomplished. In 2 years, you probably, if you're working in a certified environment or something where you've got to do any kind of outside certification, you should have that to be able to lean on. Did you get through audits from an external source or any other customer source? That's one thing to show that you know what you're doing. But also, how are your metrics? How do you look? Are you doing the things that you've planned? Again, quality is all about planning. Plan, do, check, act. I've planned, I've done, I've checked. Do I need to act? And again, these are all things where you've got some kind of a metric. So whether it's first pass yield, whether it's are your audits working the way you plan to? Are you finding problems? Are you getting a lot of complaints from your customers? These are all things that you need to consider when looking at, am I doing a good job or am I just an imposter in this business? So question 3, is Lean Six Sigma Black Belt actually worth the money, or is it just HR buzzword salad? Well, that's a good question. I look at it this way. I've never had one. I've gone through some training for Green Belt. I look at it as, do you know things like 8D problem solving? That's more important to me. While it is important to have gone through and maybe gotten the Green Belt, I don't think it's as important these days. I think can you show you've gotten through some problem solving? Here's the problem. Here's what we diagnosed as the root cause. We had some containment, and here's the long-term solution, and here's evidence that it worked. That to me is by far more so important. There is getting a green belt on your resume important, maybe just from a standpoint of you understand the concept of Six Sigma. But at the end of the day, what's most important is that you understand how to implement it, and you've got evidence to show it that you've been successful at it. Question 4. I'm stuck in quality control, inspecting parts, but I want to be in quality assurance, designing systems. How do I make that jump? That's a good question. So quality control being in the day-to-day, hey, I'm inspecting these parts. I'm making sure that they're meeting or not passing in that, whereas quality assurance being much more in the planning stage. And so that may take some training. That may take, ASQ has some good things out there for that type of training where you pay for it or your company could pay for it, but also finding a company that is willing to help you along with that. Consulting companies are always looking for planning because they've got to help customers get a system implemented first and foremost. And that's where it takes some planning into that. So that's the step I would take, is look at ASQ, see what they have, and get some training around that. Next question. Everyone talks about AI replacing coders, but what about quality? Will AI eventually just inspect and audit everything better than we can? Well, that really depends upon the company, because there's going to be some investment that needs to be made, certainly around whether you're looking at some kind of, I think of things like camera systems or any type of automatic inspecting, whether it's a CMM that's automatic inline. I think of some of the camera systems that are in current systems, like in printing or in die cutting, those types of things where it's automated and they're running at 120 feet per minute. That certainly is an effective way of doing it. But I would also then encourage you to look at, what can I do as a quality professional to make sure that I'm up to speed on all of those things. And in terms of what's going on there, and maybe you have to make a pivot at some point around what it is that you know and how you can program those systems so that you're staying in the quality realm, but now you're at a higher level or a different level. All right, moving on to the next question. My company wants operational excellence, but they refuse to stop the line to fix anything. How do I lead continuous improvement when the culture is ship it now? Well, that's a challenging question. I've been in those situations, and I think there's two ways you can go about it. One is an emotional plea to say, "Hey, we if you've got the data but to back up the fact that what you're doing is getting out the door by having that ship it now mentality, operational excellence means nothing." So that's one way to look at it from an emotional standpoint. Hey, this is affecting our relationship with our customers because they're calling up and saying, "Hey, what you're doing isn't working because I'm getting it and I don't want to deal with it. I'll find somebody else to do it." So there's that one. And then there's the cost of doing that. So if you got the ship it now mentality and customers are now they're all upset, but what about the fact that you're having to pay them to do that? So if operational excellence hasn't taken hold from an emotional and a financial state, you may want to find a different employer. All right, last question. I've spent 10 years in manufacturing technology. Let's try that again. I've spent 10 years in manufacturing quality, but I want to move to tech software QA. Is my experience worthless? No. And here's what you need to consider is that in all of quality, this concept, I mean, it's built with it's what the ISO 9001 is built on, and that is plan, do, check, act. If you can keep that mentality in terms of, "Hey, I'm planning," so you've got a plan for quality to inspect, or you've got a plan for, we'll go back to either design FEMA or process FEMA, where you've got a plan, you know your risks, then you've got a control plan. And again, those are all things that whether you're making a widget or you're making software, those have to go into it. And then you've got the plan, the do. You're doing, okay, is it working? It's doing its thing. Now we're checking. Is it giving the expected results? And then finally, is it giving any errors along the way? So, or unintended consequences that maybe you didn't have in the plan stage. So, again, and that's where you act then in the final stage of taking either corrective action or keep going. It's working well. So that to keep in mind that it is a whether you're in manufacturing or where you're in software, plan, do, check, act works every time. If you enjoyed this video, hit follow, subscribe, and look for more great videos and your Q&As from my quality guy.